Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I am bringing you a podcast, and it's fan-based, but it's band-endorsed. Really cool. We got a good song for you today, guys, something a little different, and we're going to get into that song in a moment, of course. It is Monday. Welcome to a wonderful new week, full of possibility, hopefully, or something else. Who knows? Hopefully good stuff. But I did talk about the monthly drawing was going to start in the month of February. I have drawn a name. I have sent an email to this person. If you have not received that email from me and you are the name I am about to read, send me an email at scott@scotthaskin.com so we can discuss your prize. The winner for February was Joe. Just simply Joe. That's all I have. I have Joe and an email address. So Joe, if you didn't receive an email from me, if we have not conversed by the time this episode comes out, please shoot me an email, scott@scotthaskin.com, HASKIN. Thank you very much. And congratulations on being the first winner on the Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. Excellent. But there are some really cool people that help keep this show running. I mean, you know what, guys? Even if this wasn't happening, I would be doing this until it's done. But it certainly is helpful when there are very generous people along the way that want to help with the cost of the podcast. And it certainly also makes me feel good that it just is further evidence that what I'm doing here is something that reaches people. It's making a difference. It's making people happy, bringing people joy. And if the show brings you joy, for the love of God and all things good and creatures great and small, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. That helps the show greatly. Whatever country you're in, I will find it now that we know how to do that. Didn't know before that there were reviews in different countries that we did not have access to in the United States unless you knew the way to sort of finagle yourself into the website to get it. Now we know, and I'm going through, and so far I haven't found any others but the one that I already read. But, it could happen anytime. So for those of you who have left reviews and left ratings, thank you very much. Very much appreciated. And I've also seen a few comments coming in on Podbean as well. I'm able to get those. As far as I know, there's no review or rating system on Podbean. So Apple Podcasts or iTunes is probably the best place to do that. Those, at least, I am most likely to be able to see. But those taking it another step further are those that have decided to join the Patreon account, which you can find on the website at the bottom of the page. You can also do a donation through PayPal. You can set up a one-time donation or do a reoccurring through there as well. But these folks have signed up for the Patreon account. They have a recurring donation every month, and it is greatly appreciated. I smile every time I see the email come in that the fees were collected and all that good stuff. It really does mean a lot to me. Besides, the financial help for the cost of the show, it just makes me happy that that's where we're at. So at the $5 tier, Kenny Wymore. Kenny, thank you. Coming in at $3 a month, we have a couple people. We've got Peter Voss, Goran Eriksson, and Frank Thielgaard Mortensen. Thank you, folks. Very much appreciated. And at the $1 tier, which is not officially a made-up name tier like it is on the Deep Purple podcast. However, my one patron at the $1 tier, I'm hoping this is a made-up name. If not, I'd really love to hear more about their parents. The Lifeless Airtight Gravesite. Thank you very much to all of you for your help with the cost of the show. And really, really, like I said, and we'll always say that it means a lot to me because it absolutely does. There are some other people who have contributed in their own way. My graphic artist, Scott Lazinski, who has a big project coming up on his own that I'll be letting you guys know about when it is up and running. Thank you, Scott. The graphics are absolutely amazing. My friends at Audionamics, as I say every week, I will not do a podcast without their plugin Instant Dialogue Cleaner. It is absolutely fantastic. It keeps all the airplane noises, computer fans, and all that stuff out of the podcast, so you don't have to put up with that. And really, really makes my life so much easier. Another person who makes my life easier is Dave White, who is Uriah Heep's director of social media. He shares the posts for all the episodes into the Uriah Heep groups and, helps spread the word of the show. Very helpful. That's probably why a big reason we're at the number of downloads that we are, because, I can only reach so many people. He's tapped into the Uriah Heep audience, and that is a fantastic thing. Let's see. We also have some other people who I work very closely with, and a couple of them have been on the show. My brothers in the Deep Dive Podcast Network. Over at the Deep Purple Podcast, we have Nate and John. At Skinnerd Reconsidered, we have The Simple Man. At T-Bone's Prime Cuts on the other side, we have Terry T-Bone Mathley, who was the most recent guest on the show, by the way. At Sabbath Bloody Podcast, we have Rye. And at the Lap of the Pods, we have Paul, Joe, and David. Now, I would also be remiss if I didn't mention my friend Brandon, who runs Metallicast, is doing an awesome job on that show. Really enjoyable, very insightful stuff. And just a lot of fun to listen to. It is hard to do a podcast by yourself. He does a great job doing it. It's interesting. So we have some people that do interview shows, and then we have people that do review shows, but they do them in a group or a team of people. And then we have people that do solo shows like myself. And it's really interesting to hear the different ways that all these podcasts are done when we all kind of have the same goal, which is sharing the music of these bands that we love so much. And but all the shows are good. I've listened to episodes of all of them. I wish I could say I've listened to every episode of all of them, but I just do not have that kind of time. But the ones I've listened to, I've enjoyed every single episode, and I appreciate everybody's hard work in sharing the music of these bands. Speaking of sharing the music of these bands, we have at gottahearemall.com a wonderful resource for the live history of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, as well as Deep Purple, and some other tidbits here and there. Very interesting anecdotes about some of the concerts, pictures of the concert stubs, the tickets, and all that good stuff. So go check out what Allegra is putting together. She does a fantastic job of deep research on these things. I am blown away every time I read one of them. Like, I didn't know that. Of course, that's not surprising with my lack of knowledge on live events. And one more podcast/videocast, if you're watching on YouTube, you might want to check out is Ace on Music, done by Ace, who is Uriah Heep's manager, as well as the manager of many other bands. Really insightful information into the music industry. So check that out. Really good stuff. You guys can follow the show at the website. The home base for the show is scotthaskin.com. And then just click on the Uriah Heep podcast link, or just click the link in the show notes, which will take you right to it. We also have a Facebook page at facebook.com/Uriah Heep podcast. On Twitter, we are at Heep Podcast, and Instagram, we are Uriah Heep Podcast. And remember, if you guys want to be in the drawing, get your email registered at uriahheeppodcast@gmail.com. There's also a link, a sign-up link at the bottom of the Uriah Heep webpage on my website. And you just go there, you enter your email address, and boom, you got an entry into the contest. If you are a patron, you automatically get 2 entries. You don't even have to do anything else. You just get 2 just for being a patron. Cool stuff. So it's time we get into the song. This is a very interesting song called The Shadows and the Wind. And let's get in and see what it's all about. Probably the gentlest, without some kind of build, we've heard from a beginning of a Uriah Heep song up to this point. Really gentle, really beautiful. I like there being toms being played in the background and not really a beat. It just kind of gives it a little bit more of a mystical feel to it, something that's a little bit more intriguing and different. Very gentle notes on the guitar and just a solid keyboard playing there. You get a nice sense of what the riff could develop into, but it's really kind of a nice, peaceful, just beautiful start.
Oh, they're moving in again, hidden by the shadows and the wind. But we'll just wait a while and then we'll show 'em all that this time we ain't giving in. Ain't giving in.
Well, the vocals seem really dominant, even though they're not, just because the music is so far in the background and so mild that the vocals can't really help but to sort of engulf them in their voice. Really nice, though. Nice vocal melody. Really, really interesting and different. It's almost like, I feel like this could maybe be potentially an anthem or something. I mean, I'm not talking lyric wise, but just musically, it feels like it could be the start of something in that flow. But it's nice. And then we're changing out the toms for some snare work, which is cool. It's a little bit, again, a little bit military. We've heard some of this before, but a really nice start, really nice build. And I can't wait to see what happens next.
Without a care, they sweep aside our dreams to try and make way for their own. No more should we surrender to their schemes. It's time to stand and show them we are not alone. Time has changed us all, we have our minds. Life has taught us we all have our love. And it's time to use it. Oh yeah. Use it. Woo!
Well, I did say I was hoping for a build somewhere, but I didn't expect it was going to happen like that and go in that direction. That's a nice little surprise. Really like that change. It seems a little bit abrupt in a way, because usually, Heep builds up more, more volume, more layers, something that would usually constitute that a bigger change is coming. But here they just change, go right for it, go right into a beat, a little bit stronger vocals, some more music coming in. The bass is kind of laying back a little bit, which is different for Gary, but feels good for a song like this. Depending on what the outlet or the intention is for the song, this is one that I think could easily be overplayed, since everyone else is playing more on a minimalistic scale than you would typically have. So being a little too adventurous on the bass then could seem a little more extreme because everyone else is laying back. But pretty cool. I love that tremolo on the guitar. It just really adds something to this song. If you're going to go with minimal instrumentation like this, without their typical level of layers that you would hear in a Uriah Heep song, it's kind of nice to have something to offset that and something to give it a different layer through an effect if you're not going to do it through layers of instruments. So I'm a big fan of that. I also really like the vocals here. They're so... it's not, I don't think intense is the right word, but there's they're impassioned. I mean, you really feel like he is just singing from his gut, like he's just got to say this. And I really like that. I think that brings a level of emotion that I've not seen or heard, I should say, from David so far. I mean, there's definitely been impassioned vocals, but this is like, I'm pulling this from the deepest spot in my gut because I just have to get this out. And, I like that. It's really good. And of course, the rest of the accompaniment is fantastic. The song is not busy, but it sounds rich and full at the same time. The drums are kept very simple, very basic, and that's okay because, again, much like I said about the bass, it would be very easy to overplay in a song like this. So I think keeping it simple was definitely the best option they could have gone with. At first, I thought it was kind of odd that they panned the backing vocals to the right so much. It felt a little off to me. And then, of course, when it hit the second pass and they start adding the laws into the left ear, then it made a little bit more sense. Certainly an interesting technique, and it works, but it kind of feels like my brain is ping-ponging between my two ears to really capture what's going on. Not sure I'm a fan of that decision as far as that goes, but I like the idea of how the background vocals were working. I think it's a nice layer there, but it definitely kind of reinforces that anthem feel that I felt from the beginning of the song. Now, I have to say, while I'm sure I've heard this at some point, probably a couple of times, I don't recall this song. It just doesn't. It doesn't recall from my memory at all. So I feel like I'm really listening to this for the first time, with a completely fresh set of ears. So I'm going to further my opinion on the anthem thing. I think this would make a good anthem. It's something that people can bob their heads to, kind of, skip along to as they go down the road, get stuck in their head, because this is certainly something that'll get stuck in my head. And it seems to have all those qualities of like an anthem or a theme song or something that would be used maybe in a movie. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I feel that there is an essence to this song that is off from the standard Uriah Heep song. And I don't mean off in a bad way. I just mean, different from the kind of stuff that we're used to hearing, and then might have a different application based on that. That was amazing. So many vocal layers going on there, changes with each one, and yet they just rolled with it beautifully. Very powerful, very impactful. I love the music fading out and then coming back in just a sudden burst again. Very, very intelligently done. A lot of talent in this band, and certainly something that I really enjoyed about this song. And you certainly, listening to the beginning of it, I mean, it's a Uriah Heep song. It's probably going to go somewhere. But I would have never guessed that this would be the direction it would go in. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Very simple, straightforward overall. Not a lot going on musically that would cause you to, really have to memorize a whole lot if you wanted to play the song. But really more in the vocals is where they put the energy and shine into it. But absolutely fantastic song. I really like it. Interesting that, you hear a little more activity coming from the bass, but I feel it's very restrained. I feel it's like I don't want to overplay the song. This is about as far as I think I can push it without going too far over the line and then becoming a spectacle in a song that no instrument should be a spectacle in. But very well done. And of course, then, we've got those classic crashes on the snares from Lee Kerslake in the last part of it there. But very, very brilliantly done. Greatest respect for anyone who can put a song like this together, because this is as simple as it might sound. And I say that because on the surface, it does sound very simple. This is a lot of work. This is a lot of planning, a lot of being on the same page. This is not a song that just happens in the studio by, let's just do this. Let's throw some laws on there. Like, that is very, very well plotted out, like a good chess game. Very, very well done. So big fan of this song. I feel a bit silly for cheating myself out of it for all these years. And like I said, I'm sure I've heard it. I can't imagine I wouldn't have heard it, but why it didn't grip me at the time, I don't know. But I can tell you guys in this moment that I'm sharing with you, man, I really like it. I really like it. So good song. And that is another episode of the podcast. Hope you guys felt this was a good start to kick off your week. We'll be back tomorrow with the next song on Wonderworld. In the meantime, guys, hang in there. We're at the beginning of the week, but it's going to fly by. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!